Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, so I'd really appreciate if you would like and subscribe. Okay, so now we're going to look at the Leaving Cert exam paper for English for 2021. We're going to look at the ordinary paper and some changes that have taken place, better chance and to give you more choice. So first we will just have a quick look here at the exam time. So as you can see, English paper 1 is on Wednesday the 9th of June, higher and ordinary, 9:30 to 12:20. Okay, so that's Wednesday the 9th of June, English paper 1. And then on Thursday the 10th of June, in the afternoon, we have English paper 2, higher and ordinary, from 2 to 5:20 p.m. Okay, by all means, you can pause this video and check when your other exams are on as well. Okay, so as mentioned, I want to look at the changes that have taken place in this year's Leaving Cert English Ordinary Level exam. So let's start by looking at some of the rules of the exam for this year, which are different from previous years, and also we can look at samples from the actual paper. So Ordinary Level Paper 1, Section 1, Comprehending. So instead of answering a question A on one text and a question B on another text, as usually happens, this year candidates will be required to answer only one question in section 1. They must answer either one question A or one question B on one text in this section. All of the questions in section 1 will be marked out of 40 marks in 2021 instead of the usual 50 marks allocated to each question. Okay, let's look at section 2, Composing. This will remain unchanged. So just like every other year, candidates will still be required to write one composition from the usual list of 7. So choose one composition from the usual list of 7. The composition will be marked as usual out of 100 marks. As a result of these changes, paper 1 in 2021 will be marked out of a total of 140 marks instead of 200 marks total in place in previous years. Both sections of this paper, comprehending and composing, must be attempted. Section 1, comprehending, carries 40 marks. Section 2, composing, carries 100 marks. Section 1, comprehending. 2 questions, A and B, follow each text. Candidates must answer one question from section 1, either one question A or one question B on one text. Section 2, Composing. Candidates must write one of the compositions from the list 1 to 7. Before it was worth 200 marks, but now it is worth 140 marks. The good news is they did not change the time, so you still have 2 hours and 50 minutes to do paper 1. This is now worth 40 marks. So there are 3 texts. Text 1, which is followed by a question A and B. Text 2, which is followed by a question A and B. And text 3, which is followed by a question A and B. All right. Now let's talk about the changes. In previous years, students had to do question A from one text and a question B from a different text. This year, students only have to do either one question A or one question B. You do not have to do A and B, and whichever question you decide to choose, it's worth 40 marks, not 50. Okay, so once again, before, students had to do one question A from one text and one question B from another, but this year you can just choose one question A or you can choose one question B. So you only need to do one question in total from any text that you want. So one question A or one question B on one text. Section 2 is composing. There is no change to this section this year. It is still worth 100 marks, and students are asked to write a composition on any one of the following. Any one of the following compositions, assignments in bold print below. So as always, you have a choice of 7. Okay, and you just have to choose one. And the title of the composition is always the bold writing, not the writing on top, just the bold writing. Okay, so to summarize, paper 1, both sections of this paper, comprehending and composing, must be attempted. Section 1, comprehending, carries 40 marks. Section 2, composing, carries 100 marks. Section 1, comprehending, 2 questions A and B follow each text. Candidates must answer one question in section 1, either one question A or one question B on one text. And section 2, composing, candidates must write on one of the compositions on the list from 1 to 7. Okay, so now let's look at the changes that are taking place in Ordinary Level English Paper 2. So, in 2021, instead of answering on all 3 of the sections that appear on this examination paper, candidates may choose to answer the required number of questions in any 2 of the following sections. So we have section 1, the single text, section 2, the comparative study, section 3, poetry. So instead of answering questions from each section, you can answer questions from any 2. So you can leave out one section completely if you want. Candidates who opt to answer in section 1, the single text, will have greater choice of questions than in previous years. So in my situation, my class are doing Philadelphia, Here I Come. So let's talk about that. This will be achieved by combining the usually compulsory questions, question 1 and 2, into one 3-part question, 2 parts marked out of 10 marks, with the 3rd part marked out of 15 marks. The questions usually labelled part 1, 2 and 3 of question 3 will appear as 3 individual 35-mark questions. This means that in 2021, candidates will be presented with a choice of 4 questions in this section. They will be required to answer any 2 of the 4 questions set on the particular single text which they have studied. Let's just look at paper 2 and the changes that have taken place this year. So yes, English Ordinary Level Paper 2, it will not be marked out of 200, it will be marked out of 140 marks. You will still have 3 hours and 20 minutes, which is good. And when it comes to choosing your single text, the index of single texts are always on the front page. In my case, we are doing Philadelphia, Here I Come. And you simply go and find that section if you want to do the single text, that is. Scroll through. In previous years, there used to be 3 short questions, 10, 10, 10. But this year, it's going to look like this. Question 1 will have 3 parts, 10 marks, 10 marks, 15 marks. Okay, so question 1 will be worth 35 marks. All of the single text in total will be worth 70 marks. Okay, so let's look at the single text. I'm using Philadelphia, Here I Come as an example. So this year, the single text will be worth 70 marks. There will be 4 questions. The first question will be divided into 3 parts. 10 marks, 10 marks, 15 marks. In the old days, it was 10, 10, 10, but this year, question 1 will be 10, 10, 15. You will be asked to answer 2 of the questions. So the first one will have 3 parts, 10, 10, 15. So then you will be presented with 3 more separate questions. Each of these questions carries 35 marks. So you have a choice of doing any 2 out of 4 questions. Part 1, as we looked at a minute ago, had 3 small parts, 10, 10, 15, and question 2, question 3, question 4, each are worth 35 marks. So you can choose 2 35 mark questions, and therefore you get your 70 marks for the single text. If you want to do the single text, that is. Okay, let's talk about section 2, the comparative study. Okay, so a wider choice of modes will be offered than was available previously, with questions on all 3 modes prescribed for study in 2021 appearing on the examination paper. So our modes this year are relationships, social setting and theme. All 3 modes will be on the paper. As usual, candidates will be required to answer 1 question on 1 comparative mode. The internal choice within each mode will remain the same. All questions will continue to be marked out of 70 marks, broken down into 3 parts as in previous years. The required level of reference to studied texts remains the same as before. Candidates who choose to answer a question on a text in section 1, the single text, as usual, may not refer to the same text should they choose to answer a question in section 2, the comparative study. So basically, don't use your single text, in my case Philadelphia, Here I Come, in your comparative study. That's for the single text. Okay, so let's see what that might look like in the exam papers. Okay, so in previous years, section 2, the comparative study, was worth 70, and it's still worth 70 this year. However, there is a difference. Previously, it would say candidates must answer 1 question from either social setting or B, theme. This year, it would also say or C, relationships. Okay. So every single mode is on the paper and you choose the one you want. You can either choose on social setting or theme or relationships. Okay, so it will look like this. There will be a social setting question. There will be a theme question. And there will be a relationships question. So you choose whichever mode you want. So you choose one mode. If you choose theme, remember you can either choose question 1 A or B within theme, or question 2 A or B within theme. Or if you prefer social setting, you can either choose question 1 A and B of social setting, or question 2 A or B social setting. Or if you choose relationships, you can either choose number 1 A or B on relationships, or number 2 A or B. So there's huge choice here. You choose the mode you want. You either choose theme or social setting or relationships. And as usual, there is choice within each 30 and 40, which gives you your 70 marks. Okay, let's now talk about poetry. So maybe you would like to do the poetry section. Candidates who choose to answer on section 3 poetry will be required as usual to answer on both part A, unseen poetry, and part B, prescribed poetry, which means your studied poetry. There will be additional choice in part B with questions on 6 of the poems prescribed for study in 2021 rather than on 4 as was the norm in previous years. One of the 2 extra poems will be taken from the poetry common with the higher level course, and the second poem added to the examination paper will be from the list of poems prescribed for study at the ordinary level only. As a result of these changes, paper 2, like paper 1, will be marked in 2021 out of a total of 140 marks instead of the usual 200 mark total. Okay, so let's have a look at what poetry is going to look like this year. So if you decide to do poetry, it's section 3. It's still worth 70 marks. As always, there is always an unseen poem, a poem that you have not studied already, and that will be worth 20 marks. And it has 2 questions underneath, 10 and 10. Now, in previous years, there were always 4 poems following this, with questions following. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. However, this year there will be 6 poems following, and you just have to choose one. So if you were just doing the ordinary level poets, you will have 3 and you just do 1. If you were doing a mix of ordinary and higher level poets, you will have 3 from that course and you just choose 1. And like all poetry questions in previous years, okay, there will be question 1, A, B and C, 10, 10, 10 marks. And then you have a choice of the longer question 2. 2A or B or 3, number 1, number 2 or number 3, which is worth 20 marks. Okay, so your studied poetry will be worth 30 plus 20 plus the 20 marks for the unseen poetry, so 70 marks again. So all in all, no matter which sections you do, each section is worth 70 marks. So let's finally have another look, just to summarise, at the instructions to candidates for paper 2 ordinary level. Candidates must attempt the required number of questions in any 2 of the following sections. So you have section 1, the single text, section 2, the comparative study, section 3, poetry, part A, unseen, and part B, prescribed. All sections carry 70 marks. So you can leave out one section and just do any 2 sections. The single text for my class is Philadelphia, Here I Come. The comparative study, the good news is this year all 3 modes will be there: theme or social setting or relationships, and you choose the one mode that you want to answer on. And poetry, if you want to do that section, there will be an unseen poem worth 20 marks, and then there will be 6 studied poems, of which you have to choose only one. So that's it. I would like to wish you all the best of luck in your exams, and please remember to like and subscribe. Thank you very much.